Good morning and welcome to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson, Madison County Schools. I'm Greg Hammond, Chief of Public Information for JMCSS. School Board Appreciation Week was recently celebrated in the state of Tennessee, so it is a great time to focus on the crucial role an elected school board plays in our communities and schools. Harvey Walden is one of 9 JMCSS board members who voluntarily tackled the enormous job of governing our school district. Their actions and decisions impact the present and future of Madison County students, employees, and families. We are going to visit with Chairman Harvey Walden this morning. And if you're new to the JMCSS podcast, this episode and previous episodes can be viewed right now on our YouTube channel, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and radio731.com. Mr. Chairman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
So, read your bio because we've put some things together during School Board Appreciation Week. Now, Jackson is the capital of rural West Tennessee.
Yes,
so
it is.
it's no surprise people from outside of Madison County make the hub city their home.
Correct.
Dr. King falls into that category.
Yeah.
You fall into that category. Mr. Walden, tell us about your hometown and maybe a few events that shaped you into the leader, the man you are today.
Well, I'm originally from North Haywood County,
Okay.
a little community called Forkadere. Probably at that time when I lived there, probably 75% of the population was kin to me one way or the other. So mom and dad always knew what was going on. I grew up on a farm. I started working actually at 6 years old. I was driving a tractor in the field at 6.
This is not an exaggeration.
No, very true. It was a 601 Ford. Actually, I still own that tractor today.
Okay.
It's sitting in my shed right now. And we grew up poor. But the amazing thing was everybody's poor. We didn't know it. And it didn't make any difference. Who cares? And but we, like on Saturdays, we didn't get up and watch cartoons. We got up and went to work. If it wasn't raining, we was working, doing something. And those years formed me a lot in, work ethic, because, it wasn't my choice. I mean, but I learned it anyhow. But, I definitely believe in work ethic. I ended up going to school there and graduated from that area. Went on to college in Florida for a while. Got back home. Decided I want to get into the EMS, so I became an EMT IV for about 5 years, worked out of Lauderdale County Ambulance Service, and then I ended up working for getting married, and I married a girl from Dallas, and we almost moved there. We actually had a offer on a home, and I went to see her. It was on 4th of July back in probably 88. And I was on a clover leaf of 35 and 635. It's a big clover leaf, stuck in traffic. And back then I was very
Now, a clover leaf is
in stacks of bridges.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, I was really up to date. I had a bag phone.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Zach Morris.
Yeah. And actually, I still got a bag phone, which it won't work, but I got it. And I called her. I said, "Sweetheart," I said, "You ever thought about living in Tennessee?" She said, "I thought. When were you going to ask me?"
Oh, wow.
So I moved to Tennessee, and life been great. I went to work for an insurance company, and that was probably some of the best education I ever had. It was a debit company, and so I knocked on doors, and I dealt with people, very, very wealthy to people, that were struggling, and you learn how to deal with everybody. Because, just because you got a thick checkbook don't mean that you are special or you have you have privileges as far as, and so some of my best clients was ones you could look through the floor and see chickens running. Yeah, eat supper with them. Some of the best cat-headed biscuits you ever had in your life. But life been good. Life been good.
Harvey Walden is a school board member. He is actually the chairman of the Jackson, Madison County School Board, selected as chairman in September. Agriculture is very much a staple in your background. We were talking before the show about the ag education at Liberty. And you kind of talked about those traits that special education students who participate in ag learn. One of the words you mentioned was consistency. Tell us about that.
Well, what I mean by that is this, is that actually I was at JASA, we were a couple of weekends ago, and I was seeing where they had some hydroponic going on strawberries and lettuce. And the same thing with that. You can go plant a seed and get it to grow, but if you don't tend to it every single day, it's going to die. Well, that teaches a student or a child consistency. You got to be consistent. And that goes throughout life. I mean, a lot of times, if you just hitting going this, you never get anything accomplished. And that's the reason you set goals. That reason I'm getting old, reason I keep notes, lists, things I have to do. Because I don't want to forget, but follow through. The main thing, I mean, that really, and to me, it teaches, and I also have another reason why I like that. And I'm really, we have a high truancy rate here in our schools. It started after COVID, and I was Dr. McSweeney. We was in Nashville back, I don't know, in November, and she was doing a breakout session for TSBA on Melissa's, and did a wonderful job. But one thing caught my attention is when she said there was a young man standing there and said that he was truant and had low test scores, and they asked him to join the club. He did. Now he's out of one of their clubs. He is the coach of that club. Plus two, if any teacher has a issue with a computer at
Rose Hill.
Rose Hill, thank you. They call him. He's their internal IT guy.
Wow.
And now his grades are up, and he doesn't miss school. So it got me thinking. And so what they are doing it now actually is pulling numbers on, because we had so many different clubs get started here in the last 2 years. Well, I requested numbers, pull those students, see what their attendance was and their academic grades was before the clubs. And let's see what it is after the clubs. I think we're on to something, because it's not something we have to spend a whole lot of money on and get more clubs, because once, even for football, basketball, if those players don't, if they fall below a certain grade or they don't attend school, they don't play.
That's right.
And so, this day and time, we got to find something to engage. Every student has an interest, but every student don't have the same interest. So we had to target that and say, what can we do as a board and through Dr. King's leadership, maybe to promote more of that to get the kids engaged.
We're visiting with Harvey Walden, school board chair for Jackson Madison County Schools, to help our listeners out a little bit, because we know a lot of people don't understand or they don't know the role of a school board. So just let me read the school board works closely with parents, education professionals, and community members to create the educational vision we want for our students. You all formulate goals, you define results, and you set a course as a team for quality educational programs for students. The school board is accountable to the public. The school board also is a strong advocate for public schools, which is why you were on this podcast, but also we can hear you on radio shows throughout the week. And so the school board is accountable to the public, and you all help communicate the needs of the school district. And then you also hear about the public's expectations for our school district. I do want to ask you, Chairman Walden, has there been anything about public office or leadership that has surprised you since you joined the school board? You ran for office, you were elected in 2022, it's now 2025. You've got some time under your belt. Anything that surprised you about leadership, public office?
As far as, outside the school board, that's not really my forte. But as far as the school board, what surprised me all new board members feel the same way. You get elected, you're going to do this, this, and this. Well, you don't have, you really don't have a clue what you're doing. I did not, by any means. That's the reason I've taken, as of today, 181 hours through TSBA. And I'm so proud of our board. We have 3 that's already at level 5 school board member, which takes over 185 hours of training. The state requires 7 hours a year, so you can see how our board is working so hard to go beyond what they have to do. This coming fall, we're going to have 5 of us. And we probably will have a couple out of the other 4, they're all new school board members. They will probably be several 2 and 3s, and that's amazing. And what that does, it trains us. Because first of all, you got to know what a school board member does. I mean, our job is to hire and fire Dr. King. We are his employee also to work with him. The next is the tenure of teachers. The next is to approve the budget. And also, too, we have, and falls under that, is we are the ones who approve the curriculum. And so outside of that, if we're not careful, we're getting out of our lanes. And what I mean by that is this. This past week, we had sickness, we had snow before. Right. And, of course, we get emails all the time.
A lot of people calling.
And that's great because we want to interact. And some of the things we have to tell them this. Say, listen, thank you so much for sending an email, calling, whatever. But that's not what the school board does. Dr. King has a team that includes the sheriff's department that tells us when the roads are clear. He also has a team, including the health department, that say, and we can look at numbers. Each school, we're watching the numbers. If those numbers start to really drop with absentees because of sickness, we're going to shut that school down. But so it's things that we have to stay out of because we're just going to make it more convoluted, in my opinion.
Harvey Walden is one of 9 JMCSS school board members, and School Board Appreciation Week was recently celebrated in the state of Tennessee. So we will continue to visit with Chairman Walden this morning. You are listening to For the District. It is the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools. And here's a teaser. When we come back, we're going to talk about perspective and engagement, while those are very important in the lives of our school board members. You're listening to For the District on JJ 97.7 FM. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, guess what? We get to pick our clubs tomorrow at school. What should I pick?
What about picking 4-H?
That sounds like fun, but maybe I'll pick choir club or STEM club or nursing club or photography club.
You could say my kids are excited over all the options and opportunities offered by Jackson Madison County Schools. Our public schools offer more than 100 different clubs and activities for students.
Wait, I know. Ukulele club.
Oh boy, maybe let's stick to art or debate.
For options and opportunities, tuition free, choose Jackson Madison County Schools.
Welcome back to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools. We're visiting with Harvey Walden. He's one of 9 JMCSS board members who voluntarily tackled the enormous job of governing our school district. Mr. Walden is board chair. He's been board chair since September of 2024. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
So your background is one of hard work. You grew up on a farm, and you've also participated in mentoring Boy Scouts. You've got a couple of Eagle Scouts on your resume. Talk about your experience in scouting and how it's kind of shaped your outlook as a mentor and a leader.
Well, actually, I got 15 Boy Scouts.
Okay.
And I'm very, very proud of that. The guys
or Eagle Scouts.
Eagle Scouts.
Oh, okay.
That they work very, very hard. I have, I've got actually one H2H is a architecture firm that the school uses, and one of my Eagle Scouts, Sound Banks, actually work for them. Wow. And but I got about 5 that's in armed services. I've got lawyers, doctors. And I got blue-collar workers. They're all just doing great. I'm very proud of them. I've lost one to fentanyl. That is very hard. And but life goes on. But as far as with the Scouts, one reason why, back years and years ago, I would, we have like soapbox. A Scoutmaster get to talk, and I used to challenge them and say, "Hey, listen, guys, would you wake up in the morning?" What's the first thing you want to do? If you're a smart person, you will find a way to make a living with that for your family. And I never forget one young man, he raised his hand and said, I like playing video games. I said, well, you need to find a way to play video games. He actually finds drones now.
Wow.
And so...
for a living. Yeah.
Well, he's in the Army. He can't say a lot about it. I do know that I think he's in Arizona.
That's awesome.
But what I'm getting at is it's so important with children, female and male, which I dealt mainly with boys, is that from the ages, I think, from 10 to maybe 15, is that they got so many different directions in their life they could go, and it's where they need people that will spend time, invest in them, and mentor them, and because I had mentors in my life. I could name several right now that made such a tremendous difference in my life by them spending time and directing me.
Harvey Walden is chairman of the Jackson-Madison County School Board, and our school board members work as a team. They are elected by the community to manage the local schools. They oversee multi-million-dollar budgets, which fund education programs for our more than 13,000 students, and you work very closely with the superintendent.
Oh, very close.
What's it been like to work with a superintendent that has a lot of experience and a lot of context?
Well, first, a pleasure. He also keeps us out of ditch a lot.
Okay.
You know what I mean by that is this. We all got ideas, and I've learned, and I think Dr. King would tell you this, anything that comes out, run past Dr. King, just to get his insight, to see because he knows there's so many moving parts that we as a board member may not know. So we've got to keep Dr. King in the loop on everything going, and also he keeps us in the loop, and I really appreciate that. But since I've been on the board with as chair with Dr. King, it's been an absolute delight. We both, I told him when I first got on the school board back in 22, the first meeting, I said, Dr. King, I want to tell you something. For me to know that I'm a good school board member, before I leave this district, I want you to get a certificate from the Department of Education to have the most improved school district in the state of Tennessee. And I still mean that today.
Yeah. That's one of your team goals.
That's one of my team goals. And as far as the board, I'm so proud of all the 8 board members. Each one of them is doing such a good job. And I tell them all the time, we need to stay in our lanes. And that could cover a lot of things. But the main thing is, like myself, I'm on capital in construction. That's my strong suit. I don't know anything about security. I don't know anything about buses. But we got different people that are on those committees that's their strong point. And when you give somebody their strong point, and it also works this way too, I get a phone call about a child not being picked up on a bus. I'm not engaged with that. I mean, I'm going to tell the person, hey, listen, I'm not on that committee, but I know the person is. I'm going to forward it to them. And I tell the board members this. I say, you forward it to the right person, but don't stop there. Wait about a week, and you ask that board member, how did this go, for accountability. I want accountability. We all need accountability.
Harvey Walden, school board member, District 4, Position 1. He's been with the school board since 2022. He is now the chairman of the school board. Fun fact about Mr. Walden, and I actually thought I was reading this wrong because I knew Debbie Gaw has some beekeeper experience. But a fun fact about you, you've got some beekeeping in your background, and you also like to trap animals. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, on the beekeeping, I of course, I don't do that now. My wife is very allergic to bees, and I wouldn't want to cause any issues there. But then with trapping, I do it for conservation. We here in West Tennessee, we lost a lot of turkeys several years ago. You didn't see any anywhere, and there's a lot of predators. And so that's the reason I do it. I mainly do it for conservation.
And naming some of the other board members, I'm going to go through their names, and then I'm going to come back and we'll say some fun facts. So there's Shane Barnes, Andre Darnell, Debbie Gaw, Jason Compton, Glenn Gaw, Marsha Moss, James Pete Johnson, and Andrea Givens Moore. So many of these are your teammates. Thinking about Andrea Givens Moore, and you wouldn't know until you talk to your neighbors who are your school board members. But she has a vegetable garden. She's a gardener.
She also has a restaurant downtown.
That's right.
And what people don't know about her, and she would not want to say this, but I'm going to tell.
Okay.
This past Thanksgiving, she fed over 200 homeless people herself and paid for it.
Wow.
I mean, she's a very, very good person.
James Pete Johnson, former school board chair. What's it been like to work with Pete? And I know, I think the interesting thing about Pete Johnson, if you were just on the outside looking in, you would not know what district he represents because he's all over the district supporting schools and supporting students. We know he's a big Denmark West guy, South Side guy now. Talk about a little bit about Pete having now you stepping into the chairmanship.
Well, the first thing, I had some big shoes to fill. I did. And I've asked Pete several times for advice on different things, asked his opinion on things. Actually, Pete and I have a farm that's about 2 miles from where he lives, and I see Pete all the time. I mean, he has, garden, all that kind of stuff. But with Pete also, too, what you just said, you think about this, a school board member, we got different districts we're elected in, but the votes we make affect every district in the county. So really, and what Pete's doing perfect. I mean, been all over. It's really what we need to do. I don't just represent my district. I represent the entire district.
Marsha Moss is a school board member who has teaching in her background.
Yes, she does.
And you talked about everyone bringing a unique perspective. Marsha Moss, a former teacher, talk about the value of having that voice on the board.
Well, the first time I met Marsha Moss was in a meeting. I just got on the board. We all introduced ourselves. She said that she was a professor at Jackson State. On in the meeting, she came up, she taught phonics. And so I asked her a question. Why are you teaching phonics at Jackson State? And with tears in her eyes, she said, I have students come in that say, I was the first person in my family to be able to go to college. In Harvey, they couldn't read. And it's not a lot, but it's some. And so her strong point is in education. She is so well diverse in science of reading and where our district is heading to. And she's just, I think the world of her. She's a great person.
Glenn Gall, another board member, bringing a unique perspective. As a student, he was very, very, very involved in 4-H. And now he works in mental health. And he's been an advocate in that arena. Talk about someone like Glenn Gall bringing a unique perspective.
One thing about Glenn is kind of he's a quiet person. You get him talking. Glenn is super, super smart as far as, he brings to the table, the stuff as far as, 4-H, the after-school programs, how important they are. He also brings to the table on mental health, and this is what he does for a living. But also, as far as on a budget and policies, he's so detailed. He's one of the most detailed person I know, and I got a lot of respect for Glenn. Jason
Compton, another board member, a community person. A lot of folks will remember him from his days working with our professional baseball team. Now he works at the city of Jackson, and he's really been a blessing for the athletic committee, bringing his background there. Talk about Jason Compton, a former county commissioner, now on the board.
So Jason, from several different aspects, he brings such good things to the board. One, he's on an athletic committee. He's the one we are having elementary basketball. It's because of Jason. And what that does, that's great. It's getting parents involved. They're getting engaged. Plus, two, now we got more teams that those players have to have a certain academic score. They got to have certain attendance. So that's just wonderful. And also Jason is chair of the budget committee, and they deal directly with the county commission. Well, he's already got relationships with the county commission, and that just works so well.
Debbie Gaw has really been a voice for our operations team in her background, having been a bus driver. Talk about Debbie and what she brings to the team. And when I think, look at the board now, she's probably one of the more experienced board members.
Her and Pete, yes.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Debbie and I got a funny relationship. I talked about it. She's like my big sister. I'm probably older than she is. But the other day we was having a conversation, and I finally told her, I said, Debbie, you need to eat some more chocolate and drink some more coffee and call me back. And I got off the phone. I did. We got that kind of relationship. I could say that.
Yeah.
But no, Debbie, I got so much respect for her. Debbie is a type of person, once she dig her heels in and know there's an issue, she will follow it through to the end, I promise you.
Oh, her fun fact, she said she hasn't found her hidden talent yet. I find that hard to believe. She's very, very talented, very talented. Andre Darnell is a community guy who was really inspired to run after Vision 2020 and JCM. He spearheads a scholarship for students at JCM at early college high prior to that. Talk about Andre Darnell and his role on the board.
Yeah. I have so much respect for him. Matter of fact, I'm going again with him. I think it's in March, back to Belmont College for what we call scope. And last year, I went 'cause I needed some points. I'm trying to get level 5, and I said, I want to go. I didn't know what it was about. And so I was a tag along, which I'm going to be a tag along again this year because we only can take like 4 kids, and this is the thing, and I love to go. But I enjoyed it so much, and I got to see him interact with students. And but what he does on the board is wonderful. I mean, he a very, very smart person.
Shane Barnes works in law enforcement. He brings a very important perspective to the school board, and he's one of the newcomers. What's it been like meeting Shane and getting his perspective?
I did not know who Shane Barnes was until he ran, and I have grown to love him and have so much respect for him, like the other board members. And again too, Shane is on our security committee, and he should. I mean, he's been in law enforcement his whole life, and the great thing about that is we deal now with our SOR officers. We deal with the sheriff's department. Well, with Shane, I mean, he's there every day, and Sheriff Weiser is his boss. So we got such a great link with the sheriff's department through Shane, that's on the committees, and Shane is again just a great person. He does wonderful at what he does.
Harvey Walden, School Board Chairman for Jackson Madison County Schools, joining us as School Board Appreciation Week was recently celebrated in the state of Tennessee. We've got to take a quick time out. When we return, we're going to talk about hand grenades. You gave a parable, and it's really advice for people how to share their comments, how to share their perspective, and how to do it in a positive manner.
Exactly.
We'll explain after this timeout. You're listening to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools on JJ 97.7 FM. Your school, your choice. Open enrollment with Jackson Madison County Schools makes it possible. Register for unique school options like Madison Academic, Community Montessori, and the Middle School Academic Academy at Northeast. Visit jmcss.org before the deadline to apply. Welcome back to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson Madison County Schools. This morning, we're visiting with Harvey Walden. He's one of 9 JMCSS school board members. He's the chairman of the board, so that's part of his job, promoting the school system and joining us on this podcast. So we want to thank you for your time this morning. You mentioned you field a lot of calls. Your job as a board member, people call you to share their perspective,
right,
their feedback, their complaints, their compliments, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But also you've seen folks not be very productive in sharing comments. Using an analogy, you compared it to people throwing hand grenades, right? Just throwing complaints and being nasty and not thinking about the impact. What is your advice now that you're on this side of education as a leader?
Well, as far as with parents calling with concerns, complaints, they need to. I mean, because if we don't know them, how can we fix them? And I'll be honest with you, throughout the last 2.5 years I've been here, I had very few parents either email, text, or call. They got really ugly. That didn't happen. They had complaints, they had concerns that they should. Now, a lot of time their concerns, and I found out in their complaints, for instance, we had a complaint about a child not getting picked up on the bus to 45 minutes later. We got cameras. Kind of find out that even when it wasn't their child, they saw them drive down the road. And when we pulled all the footage, the child was picked up at school on time. So you had to let things work out. Now, as far about throwing hand grenades, what I meant by that is this. We're going to have issues, from now on with the school system. There's always going to be issues, always going to be concerns. And I've noticed a lot of people, not a lot, some, when I say throw hand grenades, they just throw out there and blow it all up, but they don't have a way to fix it. They don't have any kind of recommendation on what should be done to fix that. And to me, that's counterproductive. If there is an issue in a person like myself, if I find there's something going on, first of all, don't jump. You got to take your time and let the moving parts work, see what's going on. but also too, before you come out and talk about it, come up with a solution. It may not be the right solution, but at least it's a start. And so I see that a lot, and it concerns me because, I mean, everybody got an opinion, and we need to. And the board and Dr. King need to be accountable to the public. We are here to serve them, but it goes hand in hand.
And I think we're going to close with a very cool story. Your son Gabe, a former JMCSS student.
Right.
You have three kids.
Right.
And you were telling me a story about how his sister spoke up for him.
Yeah.
And it really resulted in a beautiful ending. Can you talk about?
Sure,
this?
real quick. Gabe was born back in 2000. We adopted Katie and Russell from Russia back in. Gabe was born in 2002. We adopted him in 2000. We wanted children for years. We had 5 miscarriages. We had attempts on adoption here that failed. So we ended up going to Russia, adopted 2 children, got them home. Of course, we got pregnant. And Gabe is a special needs child that has Angelman syndrome. So he's in a wheelchair, nonverbal. And so we were at Chickasaw at the park, and Gabe couldn't play because the playground had pea gravel in it. And his sister said, "I'm not playing if Gabe can't play." 7 years old. So we just kind of pretty much walked around the boardwalk, and she wouldn't let it drop. And she kept on saying, "I want to find a place to play." So I called Mr. Tony Black, which is a wonderful person that I've been knowing for years. Got a lot of respect for him. And was asking him, "Is there a park in Madison County that we can take my son to in a wheelchair?" He said, "Well, every park you can." And I said, "Well, Mr. Black, have you ever pushed a wheelchair across cross ties and through mulch?" And so that led into, he got together and wanted a committee. My wife she's got a master's in secondary ed. She knows a lot of teachers, +2 with Gabe through the IEP meetings. She met a lot of friends through the special need, program and others. So we had about 50 people show up, and ended up, that's how North Park got here. It's through the community. One of my favorite memories of North Park is Katie and Russell and I was in East Jackson. They were having some kind of event on a Saturday, and we collected money. We collected about $30 that day in quarters and nickels. I saw kids come up putting nickels in that bucket, and that really inspired me. But it's because of 2 children, Katie and Russell, decided, hey, we want to make a change, and so every voice can be heard, and people we can do remarkable things with the community as a whole helping. But that's how North Park got started. It's called Gabriel Garden.
That's awesome. And so I think 2 words in closing that we want people to really think about. Perspective, because everyone has one, and it is important if they're willing to share it. And then 2, engagement. Engaging with your school board member, your teacher, your principal, your city councilman, your county commissioner, to share your perspective and help make the community better in whatever area we see that there is a need.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, Chairman Walden, thank you for your time this morning.
You.
Thank you for serving. Thank you for helping make our school board a team, because that's what we've been witnessing over the last several months. You all really are a team, so we appreciate that.
Great. Thank you.
You've been listening to For the District. It's the podcast for Jackson-Madison County Schools. Again, we want to thank our school board members, recognizing them for School Board Appreciation Week, which was recently celebrated in the state of Tennessee. You can catch this episode and previous episodes on Apple. You can catch it on YouTube, and always radio731.com. We hope you have an excellent Sunday, a great week, and we'll see you next time.